Cost blowouts hit big miners as they try to take advantage of the green revolution. Barbenheimer breaks box office records across the country, and Twitter's blue bird goes the way of the dodo. Welcome to Fear and Greed Business News, Australia's best business podcast. It's Tuesday, the 25th of July, 2023. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
You wanted to know about Barbenheimer, didn't you, Michael?
I did. Well, you talked about it so much last week, Sean. I figured you were going to give us an update at some point.
Yes, I still haven't seen either of them, by the way.
Oh, well, that was going to be my next question. I suspect plenty of people have, though, by the sounds of it.
Indeed.
Now, after the show, you have an interview coming up with Will Buckley, who is the country manager Australia for Xero.
All about small businesses and particularly about cash flow and how you can manage cash flow and what you can do about cash flow to make things better. Now, Will is a great communicator, and we kind of went beyond cash flow and also the effects that it has on not just the small business themselves, but the proprietors and founders and their health and things like that. It's a great chat.
Yeah, it really is a good interview, and Xero are terrific partners of Fear and Greed. Sean, the main story this morning, miner South32 has cut nearly $2 billion from the value of its proposed Hermosa project in the United States as inflation and operational problems bite.
South32 cut the zinc, lead, silver resources value, triggering a near 3% fall in the miner's share price. Now, South32 is Australia's largest miner outside the big three iron ore guys. That's BHP, Fortescue Metals and Rio. South said that high costs of steel, cement and electrical components had pushed up the cost of developing the deposit, which is located in the Patagonia Mountains in Arizona in the US. Alongside COVID delays and waterlogging at the site, it meant South32 was forced to write down the deposit by about $1.3 billion US. The value of the project is now just $1 billion US. South32 produces commodities including bauxite, alumina, aluminium, copper, silver, lead, zinc, nickel, metallurgical coal and manganese from Australia, South Africa and South America. It is certainly a very global company and has done very well in recent years. But this project isn't doing so well.
No, waterlogging at the site.
Yep. Rain, Michael, rain.
Oh, I gathered it was rain, Sean. I'm assuming it was a significant amount of rain.
Well, it's probably not. I don't know the details of the mine, but a lot of mines actually end up hitting water levels and things like that. So you've actually got to pump water out regularly. So to be honest, I shouldn't roll my eyes at you.
No, that's okay. Look, I am quite familiar with it. I've read a lot of Wilbur Smith, and there's a lot of gold mines, and they often deal with a lot of water-related issues in those mines. So
that's right.
It is a bit of a trend, though, isn't it? A blowout in costs in the mining sector, just as demand soars for minerals and metals that are really needed in the green energy transition.
It sure is. The size of these projects are massive. South32 estimates the Taylor deposit, which is part of the Hermosa project, will cost about $1.7 billion US to build. It has plenty of tailwinds. It's the only mining project on the US government's fast track approval list that can supply two minerals designated as critical, zinc and manganese, both going into the greening of the economy. But that really wasn't enough, and it continues a trend. Last week, Western Australian nickel producer IGO flagged delays and higher costs at two of its mines, estimated to be worth about $275 million. In May, Hastings Technology Metals announced the budget for one of its rare earths project had jumped more than 40% to $948 million. In June, Lake Resources said its flagship lithium project will be delayed by 6 years, costing $540 million more than expected. BCI's salt and potash project in Western Australia suffered a $500 million blowout. It goes on and on. Wesfarmers was another that got caught up in it. In fact, according to the Financial Review, if you add in Oz Minerals' West Musgrave nickel project, now Oz, of course, is now owned by BHP, so it's BHP's West Musgrave nickel project, and Rio Tinto's Oyu Tolgoi project, the gap between the original estimates for this list of mines and their final price tags comes in at over $6 billion. These are all metals and minerals needed in the green revolution. It is not going to come cheap.
That is extraordinary. Local markets, how did they perform yesterday?
The S&P ASX 200 closed down just a touch, 0.1% to 7,306 points. Among the large caps, the iron ore miners fell sharply, with BHP and Fortescue both off around 1.5%. Rio Tinto was down 1.3%. All the big banks were lower, although Macquarie Group ended the day in the black. Energy Group Woodside and its partner in crime Santos were strong performers, both closing more than 2% higher. Actually, I shouldn't really say partners in crime, should I, Michael? I might take that back. Yeah. No, I didn't mean nothing by that. Woodside and Santos people both did pretty well yesterday. That's the whole point of the story here.
You're scrambling now, Sean, aren't you?
I am. It was also a good day for the coal companies, with both New Hope and Whitehaven Coal up more than 3%. Among the tech stocks, WiseTech Global and REA both did well. Goodman Group, Transurban, Newcrest Mining, they all ended up higher. In corporate news, Rio Tinto, a North American metal management business, GM Paulo Group, have entered into an agreement to form a joint venture to manufacture and market recycled aluminium products. And Austal, the shipbuilder, went into a trading halt pending an announcement relating to a potential downwards adjustment to its earnings guidance arising out of its US operations.
And what's happening in international markets?
Well, as we mentioned in yesterday's show, a very big week for global central banks, with the US Federal Reserve, European Central Bank and Bank of Japan all meeting this week to decide on interest rates. That's hit commodity prices a bit. Oil has fallen over the past 48 hours on concerns that higher rates will hurt economic growth. Brent is trading just above $80 a barrel. Gold's around $1,960 an ounce. It's got a bit of a bump up because of these interest rate concerns. And Michael, the Aussie dollar is buying 67.3 US cents.
All right. We will be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers says the Reserve Bank won't be given additional votes on the new Monetary Policy Board, saying the central bank's interest rate decisions will be strengthened by outside opinion.
The new board structure, which is one of the key recommendations of the government's independent review of the bank earlier in the year, means the Reserve Bank will have just two votes, the governor and the deputy governor, on the yet-to-be-established committee of monetary policy experts. The board's expected to have 9 members, therefore 7 external votes. Now, one of those will be the head of Treasury, so then 6 others. In essence, the Reserve Bank will no longer drive the final result on interest rates, and the governor and deputy governor will have to convince 3 other board members to get their way. The only other G10 central bank where external members have a majority is the Bank of Japan, where 6 of the 9 Monetary Policy Committee members are appointed from outside the central bank. It very much takes control away from the bank. I would say slightly dangerous, Michael. Just before we leave Jim Chalmers, yesterday he said the budget surplus for the last financial year will be upwards of $20 billion. Pretty remarkable outcome, I reckon. He also announced that Chris Barrett will be the new head of the Productivity Commission. He knows Chris Barrett. Now, Chris Barrett was Wayne Swan's chief of staff from 2007 to 2010 when Chalmers was deputy chief of staff. That's something the opposition pointed out yesterday.
Now, Sean, the Australian government will spend $9.8 billion to buy 20 new C-130J Hercules aircraft from US aerospace company Lockheed Martin.
Yes, the new aircraft will arrive in Australia from late 2027 and add to and upgrade the 12 Hercules aircraft currently operated by the Royal Australian Air Force. Defence Minister Richard Marles said the Hercules aircraft was an important capability for the Defence Force. The Defence Force uses the C-130J Hercules aircraft for the deployment of personnel, equipment and humanitarian supplies, as well as for rescue missions and disaster relief.
Have you ever been in one, Sean?
No, have you?
No. I just thought it just kind of struck me as the kind of thing that you might have done, because you've done some odd things at various times, like meeting Taylor Swift and doing a crazy handshake with Snoop Dogg. Thought you could have been in a Hercules.
So I'm just not sure how the Snoop Dogg handshake and having a chat to Taylor Swift fits in with Lockheed Martin.
It's basically just that you were full of surprises, Sean, and right. I just thought maybe you had been evacuated from somewhere on a Hercules at some point during your journalistic career. No?
It wouldn't be great to go on one though, don't you reckon?
Oh, it certainly would. They look spectacular when you see them flying over. Anyway, moving on. Discount department store Target is being folded into Kmart. Both are owned by Wesfarmers in an effort to boost returns from the flagging retailer.
It will create a single $10 billion business within Wesfarmers, which it hopes will benefit as customers become more cost conscious as the price of living rises. The boss of Target has been moved into a new role in Wesfarmers' health unit, while the boss of Kmart will look after all the discount department store businesses. Kmart and Target will remain separate consumer-facing brands, and the group says there will be no impact on staff or customers. I wonder how long. Now, do you remember a couple of years ago, I think it was 2020, Wesfarmers cut jobs at Target, closed a bunch of stores, it rebranded others, came up, it said it would remain. Now we've got this.
Yes, it does look as though we could be heading in a certain direction here.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, one of the longer-running merger deals is ANZ's takeover of Suncorp's banking business, more recently because the competition watchdog has delayed its decision on the deal. Now the final decision has been pushed back another week to the 4th of August.
Yes, the $4.9 billion deal will, if it happens, be the biggest so far this year, though there are a few other tie-ups like Newcrest and Newmont Resources going around. They haven't happened yet, so this could be the biggest one of the year thus far, assuming it occurs. It's actually the second time the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission has allowed an extension, and it follows a late response from ANZ to an expert report about what the merger will do to competition. Now, apparently, when you respond to the ACCC, you're only allowed 50 pages. ANZ went much bigger than that. And the ACCC then came back and said, well, we need more time to read all those extra pages and consider it. Now, this deal was initially announced in July last year. We're still waiting for a competition determination.
Goodness me. Now, state governments, Sean, are pushing rent controls as a way to alleviate the housing crisis, but members of the industry argue it's doing the opposite because it will reduce the stock of rental property available.
A bit of self-interest here, okay, but still, they have a point. The industry argues that if the Victorian government overhauls the state's property rules and allows only one rent increase every 2 years, then investors will just simply leave the market. They won't be getting the returns that they had hoped for. In Queensland in April, the Palaszczuk government introduced new laws allowing for one rent increase a year only. There are actually already some signs of investors leaving the market, with a number of property investments up for sale soaring in recent months, according to investment bank Jarden. Private investors actually own the vast majority of Australian rental properties, so these rules hit them very, very directly. Not helping, of course, is a slowdown in price appreciation. In fact, last couple of years we've seen price falls, but at the moment growth in prices is fairly slow. That means investment properties just aren't providing the same returns as they used to. If people aren't spending money on investment properties, they're not getting built, there won't be as much housing stock available for renters. That's how the argument goes anyway.
Sean, ASX-listed Core Lithium seems to divide investors. It's got plenty of supporters, given since May it's been exporting output, but also many detractors. In fact, it's the second most shorted stock on the ASX. Yesterday, its share price tumbled 17% after it said production for the next financial year will be lower than expected.
Really interesting stock, this one. Now, Core Lithium's been one of the most volatile stocks on the top 200. 3 years ago, it was trading around 4 cents a share. It went as high as $1.67 a share late last year. It's now back above 70, or just a bit above 70 cents a share. So from 4 cents to $1.67 to 70 cents. And that's all on the promise, or otherwise, of big lithium output and exports. While Core Lithium will sell around 95,000 tonnes of lithium-rich spodumene concentrate through Darwin Port this financial year, its plans to develop an adjacent mine near its main mine on the outskirts of Darwin have been hit by delays. And yesterday, Core also said it has hit constraints in its lithium processing plant. So problems at Core Lithium, and I think in this instance, the short sellers, which effectively bet against the share price rising, have won.
Sean, I don't really know how we go from lithium to movies, but we're going to do it. An update on Barbenheimer.
Ah, yes. Michael, you went from Taylor Swift and Snoop Dogg to Hercules aircraft. You can do anything.
That's right. I thrive on contradictions, Sean. The dual debut of Barbie, starring Margot Robbie, and Oppenheimer, starring Cillian Murphy, has triggered the biggest box office takings in Australia on a Saturday and Sunday ever.
Oh, and you laughed at my interest in this story, Michael.
I never laughed at you, Sean.
You did. And in the weekend edition show, where we're talking about our favourite story of the week, and I came up with Barbenheimer. Now, fortunately, our man Adam Lang, our adjudicator, was on my side. He understood how important this story was. I thought you just kind of treated it quite disrespectfully. Anyway.
I didn't. I mean, you could probably go back and check that and see that I did, but I will deny it. I will deny. Please go on.
So both films were released last Thursday. Many cinemas anecdotally reported sellouts. Yesterday, the Motion Picture Distributors Association of Australia said the Australian box office grossed $11.1 million on Saturday and $10.5 million on Sunday, the largest one-day totals for each day ever. The MPDAA, as it's known, the Motion Picture Distributors Association of Australia, it's quite the acronym, MPDAA. MPDA. It estimated that the Thursday to Sunday takings will be more than $34 million, making the debut weekend the second or third biggest in Australian history. The biggest was actually Avengers Endgame back in 2019, and the second was Boxing Day weekend 2013 when Hobbit 3 and Frozen were released. Anyway, Oppenheimer and Barbie, better known as Barbenheimer, seems to be doing a good job saving cinemas. Just as an aside, in the US, Barbie over the weekend took $155 million US. Oppenheimer took $81 million. In fact, Barbie's now the biggest grossing opening film of the year.
That is huge. That's a big difference between the two. I'd kind of got it into my head that they were probably going to be a little bit closer than that.
3-hour wartime drama. What is it? R-rated verse.
Fine. You don't even need to finish the point, Sean. I know where you're going, and I don't like it. In international news now, Spain went to the polls over the weekend, and neither the right or left parties secured a clear path to forming a government.
The opposition People's Party won the most seats in Parliament, but not enough to govern. It means the EU's fourth largest economy will spend weeks, maybe months, in negotiations over voting alliances. In fact, there's also a potential for repeat elections as occurred in 2015-16 and 2019. Now, I must say we don't often speak about Spain on this show. In fact, I don't think we've ever spoken about Spain on this show. But did you know in 6 weeks I'm visiting Spain?
Oh, God, the self-interest. It's just, I was wondering why this story had suddenly not just made it onto the podcast, but leapt to the top of the international news. I'm like, surely there's got to be something in here. The economic, okay, all right. Oh, it's Sean going away on holidays.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness me. Now, well, we'll jump away from that to Elon Musk and Twitter. And I'm interested to see what you make of this, because Elon Musk says it's time to bid adieu to the Twitter brand and logo. They're going to replace the blue bird, a very recognizable logo, with an X.
He loves X's, though.
Yeah, I know, but does everybody else?
Well, he said the rebranding should have been done a long time ago. Of course, he's only owned Twitter since last October. He's a long-time fan of the letter X. And, Twitter, for example, is a subsidiary of the holding company X Corp, which Musk owns. He also recently created an artificial intelligence company, X.AI. Now, he's got a child named X-A12. Well, that's actually me reading out the letters, but who knows how he says it.
Mm-hmm.
But no doubt Musk is hoping the branding change can help the company. It's losing money because of a 50% drop in advertising revenue and a massive debt. Some media reports suggest it's got about $19 billion in debt. Last week, it had a lawsuit that alleged Twitter owes at least $743 million in severance pay to former employees. A lot going on there. Elon Musk obviously thinks X can make a difference.
It's a fascinating move, isn't it? Kind of banking on a clean start, like with a new brand over a very recognizable logo.
Yeah, I don't. And if you think of all the websites around the world and which identify with that logo, I mean, websites that I'm involved in, we've got to make that change. It's not Twitter that's going to make that change. So I don't know how they're going to do it.
Yeah, good point. All right. Up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview. You are speaking today with Will Buckley, Country Manager Australia for Xero, which is a supporter of Fear and Greed.
all about cash flow, what's happening with small businesses, and the broader impact it has, not just on the business, but on founders and CEOs and owners and things like that. It's a great interview.
Yes, coming up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Tuesday, the 25th of July, 2023. Make sure you're following the podcast. Join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and for a little bit longer, Twitter, before it moves to X. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.